Washington.
Did he forget to do it?
No, you know what it is. He signs into the school committee account every now and then. It's a Google Sheet. Other than that, we are. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the July school committee meeting. The first order of business is to move the committee into executive session. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to convene to executive session to approve executive session minutes for June 6, 2023. Updating on Cato Field mediation homeschool request pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A2. To approve executive session minutes for special meeting June 8th, 2023. Update on Cato Field pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246-5A2 mediation. And to approve executive session minutes for June 20th, 2023. Job performance for an individual, Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A1 and Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A4. Investigative proceeding civil. To talk about Situate Special Support, Situate Educational Support Personnel, NEA pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A2 collective bargaining, and superintendent's evaluation and performance goals pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll be back at 7. The personnel supplement on the COLA. No, we talked about that for the custodians. Remember, I called you on that.
But again.
Carolyn,
Okay, snooze or lose.
I'd like to call the July meeting to order. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair, do you mind if we still stand for a moment of silence in honor of Dave
Oh,
D'Agostino?
not at all.
In honor of Dave D'Agostino, we will miss him and the incredible contribution that he's given our town. His stories and his memories, I'm sure will
Live on.
forever.
Thank you for bringing that up. The committee met prior to this meeting and we took the votes. Primarily, the voting was just to approve the minutes. And then there was discussion on the other two items. So other than that, there's nothing else to report out on. First order of business here is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the approval and discussion of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda to include the minutes of the regular session for June 6, 2023, special meeting for June 8, 2023, and June 10th, 2023. Also bills for general fund bills at $721,794.53. Grant fund bills of $297,973.71. Northwest Regional Special Education, $5,042.19. And school food service funds for $47,254.12.
Any discussion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next agenda item is a field trip to Spain. And I did want to talk to the committee about the trip overall because although our council is not here tonight, he did call me and he actually recommend that we, give the trip a blessing and tell them good luck, but just don't make it a school sponsored trip. So they would go off and just get together and go because of the liability that the committee would be exposed to with them going to Spain. I did push back, and this is why I really wanted to talk to the committee, because I said, okay, so what happens when they go to DC? We're not liable for that, or I don't understand why a trip to Spain is different than a trip to DC when it comes to, obviously I know the difference. I'd much rather go, well, I love DC, but anyway, I just don't know why the liability risk or exposure to the committee would be different. So I don't, that's his recommendation, is that we don't, and we don't we don't approve it as a school sponsored trip. And it would mean that they would just be on the outside doing what they want and fundraising and do all that and can go. We give, again, but it's just not tied. It's not tied to the district. So I really wanted to get it out there to hear your opinions on that.
So I think we're currently in the middle of a policy that I believe we approved the first reading, but we did not approve a second reading because we wanted to go back and tweak it a little bit, and we've not gone back to that policy work. So I think what John is referencing is what is proposed in that policy, if you recall. Is there time to, if that policy got passed, I think what John is talking about would apply, but that's not how our current policy reads. So I feel like if we were to do that, we really should go back and approve as a school committee that policy, or not approve that policy or tweak it. So
So
how
the
late?
school committee, the policy subcommittee was going to be recommending what our attorney is telling us the way we should move forward. And he's saying that because it's on the agenda and it's coming to us, that's the way we should handle it, which is what I think he and the policy committee is recommending anyway.
So when does Mrs. Langley need to know this? When does she need our approval by?
I'm sure they're looking for approval sooner rather than later. That's why it's here so early to you, because I'm sure they're going to begin fundraising and, they have to make arrangements with a travel agent and hotels and all of that sort of stuff. So, and unless we think we can get the policy work done and get back to the committee in the first meeting in August, I would not think they want to wait much longer than that.
Any idea how is it Mrs. Langley that's doing this? Yes. Do you have any idea how Mrs. Langley feels about this not being a school sponsored?
I don't.
So do you think we should run it by her and see what she thinks, and to make sure she fully understands what that means?
That I think it's, obviously she wants to bring it to the school committee and have us sponsor the trip. But I'm confused because why were we doing that even in the policy? Like, what was the driving force that would not allow us to sponsor this type of a trip, which I think in the past, we've always sponsored abroad trips.
So this, I just want to jump in. So, and I missed the first part. So I think I know what you said. So this was brought to us not that long ago. There was a trip that they went to this past April. And it came to us much later than whatever. So it was in the last 6 months, and we had these exact same conversations then. And I think that's what re-upped kind of the whole piece of, and if I remember some of the conversations, is that like this trip is, yes, there's a school coordinator, it's a teacher who helps coordinate it, but it's through an outside independent agent, like school tours, I'll call it. I don't know what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like that's who you make the checks. I believe that's who the checks are made payable to. That's to, as opposed to like a
With the
DC,
DC ones.
as
like
opposed to a
that? Oh, I
DC
see.
trip, I believe, and we can get some further clarification that it's like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to. Like the DC trips, historically, if I remember correctly, like, or the other kid thinks my kid's like New York, whatever, I'm writing a check to the Situate School Department, and then they divvy up who gets paid what. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like we're the broker of the trip. And I think if I remember correctly, so we all would have been here like 6 months ago when we talked about this, right? Like, and that was the piece where, and again, it's not to say they're not taking time out of school, they're not doing, we don't want to appear that we're not in favor of them doing these things. But it's also not, and I believe we did pass it, we gave the approval, I think,
did.
last year.
Additionally, there is, for John, there was concern around the cost of this trip, and if there were kids that wanted to go
Yeah.
that could not afford it. By regulation, we are responsible for making sure that everybody has access. So we would have to find a way to fund those kids who could not fund it through fundraising or through parent
So
donations.
for that reason, oh, I know, I'm so focused on that fan making noise and blowing Carolyn away, I'm getting all my stuff here. So for that reason, I think what I'm hearing collectively is that we should not approve this right now
As a school sponsored event.
as a school sponsored event. For that reason, and again, so like when we talk about New York trips, DC trips, I mean, the DC trip is pricey itself, but if I remember correct, like that trip, this trip is like $4,000.
Yes.
And I know they afford kids opportunity, but there's no way our budget can even help with
Mhm.
one kid. If it's a $200 trip to New York for the day, of course, you know, if
Okay.
need be.
I get it now,
Does that make sense to
Yeah.
everybody that we, and I, if,
but I don't think we have to wait. We have the authority just to.
but I
We
think
don't need to wait for a policy.
Exactly, yeah.
I do, but that policy, so according, let me just kind of circle back to what you said, is that this teacher is actually following our policy in a sense that they have to come to us for all, but we're just, or are we just saying that this is not a school
I would
based trip?
just say that the policy is currently being, I'm not just saying it.
No.
Policy is under revision, and the revision is aligned to that, so we're not using that old policy
I
anymore.
don't know if we can just arbitrarily do that. I'm not sure. That's a question for John.
He seems to think good.
You can deny this trip, and she can go forward independently and
Okay.
arrange this trip with kids and the travel agency.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
She would be doing that independent, not covered under the district's insurance. And that will, all be explained to her.
So my guess would be that
They might not.
that would be something that I think needs further clarification, right? Like, so I would assume, but we know what can happen with that, that the organization is obviously an organization that does this all the time with children, right? So I'm assuming they have some of coverage, insurance, blah, 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 this and that. That would cover whoever decided to coordinate that trip.
I don't know that for a fact.
No,
But I think you're probably right. I know that we went through this same issue in my previous districts. And initially, the person that was coordinating the trip was very, very apprehensive and kind of said no. And then the more, they did end up going. So the more research that the coordinator did, she got to a place where she felt comfortable and the trip went on.
So as a committee, I guess just to kind of loop it in together, we as a committee don't feel as though a trip of this nature is something that should be a school sponsored activity.
All international travel.
So our and I'm playing devil's advocate, our DECA kids or our HOSA kids get invited to Paris for I just want to kind of play it out that it's kind of beyond the scope of what we're going to do for any form of international travel. I mean, that could be Canada.
Has the right to waive it.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing. Do you know what I mean? So Is that kind of how everybody feels?
So does somebody want to make a motion on this?
It's a hard decision, because it's such a great opportunity. I'm looking at
It's,
1825.
yeah, so they haven't even announced it to the kids yet at this point. I want to say there was just a trip to, where'd they just go? I just have, France? No, there's one to France.
She was here, she's not.
I want to say roughly probably 15 kids, if my memory serves me right, like I actually saw pictures of 15 kids with, you know what I mean? Like,
I just feel bad we have a teacher that's willing to take all these kids that have this experience and we can't support it, but. Okay, I get it. Do I have a motion
I
on
just-
this item?
Just saying, all groups, leaders, schools and districts who travel with EF are automatically added as additional insured under our $50 million general liability policy. I just hope that they can still qualify for
That's what I
that
mean. We're taking
policy
away
if they're not
the protection from
if we're
them.
not sponsored. Mhm.
do we think that?
Oh, wait a minute, regardless of whether or not the tour is affiliated with the school. That answered that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I don't think the insurance is that expensive anyway. It's not, it shouldn't be. Does
So
someone
they're
someone like to
insured
make
with
a
this,
motion?
whether they're affiliated, if the trip is affiliated with us or not. So that makes me. feel
So
good
are we
about
going to,
people.
do we deny this or what are we doing with this item? Do you want to make a motion or do
So-
you want to just table it? And just not act on it?
So
So,
is it your concern that she's following the policy and I guess the policy is we can deny it.
yeah, I got it, my head's kind of,
Right.
I wish I had the policy in front of me.
I don't know if we can, maybe we should table it for this. I don't want to just say deny it and then it appears as though we don't support. We're trying to,
I just think we just stay
Impede-
silent on it. Just stay silent on it. Just don't, we're not going, we've had a discussion on it only. We haven't
Right.
taken a vote on it.
but I think that, and Lori,
There's-
chime in and again, so if it's come to us, it crossed the principal's desk and a superintendent's desk and they've signed off on it.
I don't sign until after school committee signs
Okay,
because it's international. Anything overnight or international like that has to have school committee approval. So I would
Okay.
not approve it unless
All
you
right.
do.
and I know the it has to go that.
But yes,
Does this warrant a conversation with the principal and the teacher, like, before we shoot it down to just kind of like based upon our
if,
conversations
if
tonight?
you think that that is going to impact the decision that you make, whether she will go
No,
forward
I
with
don't
the
think it
trip or
will.
not,
I don't think it, now that. you-
then I would say yes. But if
Okay.
you don't think it's going to have an impact on your decision, then I would say it's irrelevant.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. So that's a
It's
great,
not until next year.
Yeah,
it is
but they want to
April.
fundraise,
Yeah.
and they gotta get on the docket, and they gotta get reservations and.
Yeah, no, so, and honestly, it came to us much later last year. I think they were, and again, for whatever reason.
Yep.
But I think Lori brings up a good point that I think that even if we talk to hypothetically, if Lori went back and talked to the principal and the teacher. And the teacher said, well, I'm not taking these kids if it's not school sponsored. I don't think that would change my mind as much as I wanna, I think it's
No one,
beyond.
no one is here that's sponsoring the trip or Mike Castle isn't here.
If the teacher came back and said, I don't want to go if it's not sponsored, I would want to know why.
Well, we just gave 3 reasons why.
But
I would want to know her reason why.
so
Oh, that she won't go.
but so I
It's
think,
gotta be the insurance.
but I honestly think that international travel is, while it's a blessing, it's wonderful, it's this, it's that. I don't think that we as a committee should be, particularly for the reasons mentioned as far as funding and doing in this. I think it needs to be, it would be a shame if this teacher didn't, or any teacher didn't do it in the future. But I think I don't think we can approve any form of trip that's $4,000. Period, right? Like,
I think we should have further discussion with Ms. Langlois, but within the forms that she submitted, all this handouts, it does say something about general liability insurance and
yeah,
anyone, all groups, whether affiliated with a school or not, are under a $50 million general liability
but
policy.
bottom line is, if whether she's willing to go or not, I think the key is what Lori said before, that I think we need to like, this trip falls outside the perimeter of what we would see as a school sponsored activity. Because if we put our blessing on it in any way, shape or form, ultimately it can come back to us to say, little Johnny wants to go, but only has $50 for
To
the
me,
4,000
it's not
trip.
so much the liability, it's the fiscal liability.
Yeah, it's the funding of the
Yeah.
actual trip, and
Right.
this isn't an opportunity that's gonna be offered to, you know, like a 8th grade trip where every kid has an opportunity to go and we sell calendars. There's a lot of calendars to get $4,000, you know what I mean? So if she chooses to move forward with that, I can tell you, my daughter's gonna be a senior this year. And she was upset she didn't go to France. She was banking on Spain, but I'm sticking to my guns, and I think you'll have to take her. if it goes another- my opinion, I think it's
If it was Greece, maybe, I'm not.
cost wise,
That
I
makes
think it's beyond our purview, and I think we need to start somewhere, right? I think we pushed it through last year because these kids had already started, they had already done whatever. I think that just period, regardless of what our policy
Okay.
says.
We're gonna, so
Yeah,
we're gonna,
beat
we're gonna
it to death.
table, wanna just table it? Do I have a motion to
You're
table?
tabling it?
No, I think we're voting, I think I'd like to pass a motion to say that we are not approving
Oh, you,
this. Because the motion is that we're
That's what I
not.
thought we were doing in the first place. I agree.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So I'm making a motion to not approve this for the reason that we feel as though a trip such as this is outside of the scope of the school committee. And we'd like that related back. We're not trying to say, no, they can't
I'm
go.
writing right on the
Yeah.
form and I will meet with the teacher and the principal.
And we welcome them at a future meeting if they feel.
And I will invite them to the policy meeting also.
Are you guys good with that?
What does that mean? It's outside the scope of the school committee?
The trip itself, it's not a school sponsored event. It's not a school sponsored, like, she's doing this gathering, but if we go back to our policies, this isn't an 8th grade trip. This isn't I would like
Okay.
to say that our, well, I won't go that far because we don't want to get off topic,
Okay,
but
do I have a second?
I'm really like torn. I'm torn. But I understand the liability financially.
Yeah,
It's
it's
never
really
been an
the
issue in the
fiscal.
past,
impact.
but there's always a first time, right?
If you're going in that direction with the policy and our legal counsel is recommending that this is how we go, I think it's probably the prudent thing to do.
Yeah, I'll second your motion, Colleen.
Do I have all those in favor?
But with pain,
Yeah,
you don't have to. live with
painful
horror.
eye. The surprise for me. So, we got notice that our director of technology is finally taking the plunge, joining the ranks, and he's retiring. So. But you know, I do want to say something, and I know you want to give us a little bit of an update and a transition plan, but before you do that, I would like to just let this committee know, for those that weren't here when you first came on, that you came to a district that had woefully inadequate technology. And I know, you know, there are people, Eric has been here, and, you know, you had the experience to come in and immediately start addressing the issues that we were hearing from our teachers and our students and our parents just on Wi-Fi alone. Tom, you knocked an E-rate, you killed it. You killed it. Then we started building capacity slowly. And then, of course, we've got millions of dollars to go one-to-one, and you orchestrated that as well with your team, and you have a amazing team, I have to say, with Eric and Mike. But I don't want you to think for 1 minute that that important work, at least for me, went unnoticed. I felt like this district went from 0 to 100 when you came, and I'm very, very appreciative for that. And I haven't heard any complaints about Wi-Fi since you've upgraded all of every room in this district. So
You know, I have to just jump on that. And Eric, I think you probably know a lot more than most here.
if I missed something, please.
No,
come up.
I remember and I forgot. That's how good it's gotten, right? So we had this COVID thing in between, but we It was crazy. That like in our elementary schools, in our like test taking. Again, I totally like it's just because it's been smooth sailing. But Eric can attest, right? Like teachers like outraged that they would be doing state testing and the computers would drop down and they do so. It's kind of thank you for bringing that and thank you for all you've done. And right back to you back there, Eric, too, because you guys I don't think you guys were here for that part. Maybe it was bad. It was bad. So we've come a long, long way. And who'd have ever thunk we would have hit 1-to-1, like boom, by the way, we're going to go 1-to-1 in, I don't know, 5 minutes, but we've moved mountains.
Yeah, and that was like drinking water from a fire hose,
Yeah.
trying to get everybody
Oh.
up and running, exactly. And so I know we've known each other forever. And I knew that when you decided to come here, we were going to be in a place where someone would have the vision, and now with the committee that finally supported technology, because the resources, it wasn't anything to do with past school committees, just the resources were never dedicated. So I do appreciate it. And if you would like to come up and talk to us about where you've taken us, I'd love to hear it. And if Eric or Mike want to say a few words, please, it's up to you.
Thank you very much. I really greatly appreciate all those wonderful things you've said. And for the folks that weren't here, actually, I realized just before this meeting, it was actually 5 years to this July meeting that we were in the auditorium sweating because it was like a 98-degree heat index. Now we have this nice fan. But if you remember, the lights were blazing on the stage and yeah. So really, I mean, a lot of it, if anybody hasn't seen it, and I didn't want to waste a bunch of paper here, but a lot of this was really generated from the Highlander report as well as the Jacobs report. So I have a copy if anybody would like to take a look at it. But one of the, a number of the key things, and I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. And it's not necessarily in chronological order, but it did talk about at the time, Mark DeLuglio was a part-time tech coordinator and a part-time data person who actually owned his own company as a contractor. Eric worked for him for 11 years straight here in the district before becoming an actual Situate employee pretty much at the same time I was hired. So this report helped to bring me on as well. Then we ultimately ended up with Michael, who's been just a fantastic addition. And certainly Mark DeLuglio, goes without saying. I mean, he's put well over 25 years into this district.
It was amazing what he was able to do with, with such minimal
Right, and-
resources.
right,
And he still, thank God, we still have him for our data because he
A-
knows it so well.
So well, and of course, the regulations at RIDE continue to change. They want more and more
He's
data.
all
and-
over it. So
and so on. But some of the things, and I also would be remiss without thanking former Superintendent Blanchett for bringing me on in the first place. And I really owe her a debt of gratitude for that. And again, the support that this committee and Superintendent Andres has given me over the last 3 years has been amazing. But some of the things we set out right off the bat were going from a split Google Microsoft world into Google exclusively. We actually did that. Eric and I sat in the server room over the first Christmas break I was here, and we made the cut over to 100% Google with emails within the first 6 months. We started implementing online help desks. Again, if you wouldn't know it, the elementaries were basically serviced for their tech problems by filling out a little piece of paper in the binder that they would leave in the office. And the guys would stop by once or twice a week to look at the binder to see what needed to be done in so-and-so's classroom. Or we'd come into the server room and there'd be sticky notes and there'd be paper slide underneath. And so we implemented that rather quickly. The other thing was an implementation of online assets for all of our assets in technology. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500 assets between printers and monitors and devices. We also, during the first year, which was noted in the Highlander report, all teachers were given Chromebooks within that first year so that they had their own devices to use and they could start to learn to use and learn the ecosystem of Google if they weren't already familiar with it. We initially started a new website in the second year to update the one. We've since gone to another new website, which has even a better implementation to it. One of the other things we did early on that really helped a lot, and Mr. Mickelson owns a lot of credit for that. We actually took, if you remember, we had the Stream Windows computers, and those were a lot of the ones that were crashing during testing. And we actually applied a Google license to them and converted them from a Windows machine to a Google machine. So we basically turned a 450 unit fleet for about $50 a unit, and they got about 3 years worth of service out of them after that. Another thing that was in the Highlander report was thin client technology, which, 10, 12 years ago was a hot thing. It was a inexpensive way to get multiple machines within a classroom, but the technology was so aging and it was actually slowing down our network incredibly. We implemented a lot of cybersecurity rate initially, malware blocking and offsite backups. Again, broke up and divided up our network into a more suitable and more controlled traffic situation. Another area where we saved, I believe, a lot of money. I don't know the specifics on it, but we started to introduce multi-function copiers. When I got here, every single classroom had an inkjet printer. Every year, over the summer, they gum up, they don't work. You're buying supplies constantly. We've gradually took a while to adopt, but now it's pretty strict that everybody prints to a central location, which is saved a ton of money for the district.
I'll kind of uplift it first. Oh, I have a printer. I don't write. Eric said,
Yeah, oh yeah.
I can go with ink and with again, and not digital age, but
Exactly. And then, and to spin off of that again, Eric had found a software. One of the problems we had early on with Google was the Google printing features are very clumsy. And Eric had found a gentleman actually in England that had come out with a product for Google printing, which we still use to this day. And it also allows us to exclusively, like, students can only print to the media center copiers. They can't print everywhere. They can't print in the office. Teachers automatically get black and white as their choice on the color printer. They have to select color if they really need. So there's a lot of controls, and there's even more that these guys are working on in that area. I'm going to try to speed this up. The one-to-one devices, initially, again, under Superintendent Blanchett, we came up with an idea that we were going to roll out devices to the 6th and 9th grade until we had one-to-one across grade 6 through 12. I also realized this year, so the class of 23 was the first class that got their Chromebooks in 9th grade and carried them all the way through their high school experience till they turned them into graduation this year. And I would say 98% of them are still functioning.
That's great.
And they'll be either come Parks machines or loaners. And then in the course of the one-to-one, we had this little thing called COVID. And we literally went from taking all machines out of carts that were spread around throughout the district, passing them out. The cows, we were standing in the parking lot, handing them out to people, handing out mobile hotspots for people who didn't have sufficient internet access at home. And within 18 months, we were K-12 one-to-one, which I think was a pretty good accomplishment. we've talked about some of the upgrades, especially the Wi-Fi over stages and E-rate. And without an exact number, I pulled some of the numbers, but we've received over $300,000 worth of reimbursement from E-rate over the course of the 4 years that we've been working on these projects. We've upgraded all the office computers. Again, most of them were on thin clients. Implemented the Pixelot system, which is what allows folks to be able to watch the basketball games or volleyball games. Unfortunately, because we don't have anything suitable area in the football field, you know, that can't be added. We would need a press box. So hopefully someday there'll be a press box and then that can be expanded. The student information system, again, that goes back to Mark. The financial management system, which I must point, IT did some support, but the main office, just such a huge uplift, and Stephanie and everybody in the office, past and present, to get that up and running, just amazing. Again, some of these I'm just going to interactive touch panels. If you haven't been in elementary classrooms, every single elementary classroom in the district has at least one 65-inch interactive panel. That's on a mobile cart, so they can move that around. They can pull that into a room, add a webcam to it, turn it into a conferencing center. That's really been a huge success in the elementary classrooms. All classrooms, actually, as of this year, will have brand new carts. One thing Lori and I were talking about, and some of the things which was pretty amazing. All the carts we've used up until really last year, I think. Up until last year, were actually donated carts that came from Warwick that Mr. Carenti had gotten for us, and we repurposed those, and we again got 4 years out of donated equipment. Our CTE labs have all been updated. Art labs have all been updated to the latest stuff. We also had some money, and I believe there's more money that's going to focus on additional cameras and security measures here throughout the high school, middle school. And then one of the other things that was relatively recent I wanted to bring is we implemented two-factor authentication throughout the district, and the importance of that not only is just the cybersecurity itself, but that really is becoming a requirement from the interlocal trust in order to be able to hold their cybersecurity policies. So those are some highlights. I think I probably missed some. Again, like I said, I really want to thank the group here. This department has been fantastic. I think we've, collectively done remarkable work with a small group. Some of the best people I've ever worked and managed my entire life. And then just to try to close it up for you, in process, we're still ready to move forward on district-wide phones across the district. The system here at the high school is roughly 20 plus years old. Not to mention it can't just directly call the other schools. That will change. All the schools will be able to 4-digit dial amongst themselves, page amongst themselves. So that's going to be a big thing. Eric has taken a lead on a lot of that. And Jay Martin, I'm sure, is going to be helping him along the way, as well as the other security updates. We just got word in the last couple of days that the new devices that are being ordered for all the paraprofessionals are on their way in. So those should be up and running by the beginning of the school year, as well as our new devices that are planned for grades 3, 6, and 9. And then the other large project that Mike is kind of spearheading for the most part on that is what's called Incident IQ, and it's going to allow us to actually bring in our technology ticketing system, our asset management system, our HR functions, tie into our SIS system, and basically streamline. Right now, the IT part and the facility part are separate. So those will all be in one. And then with the HR process, we can do some automation between Power School, Incident IQ, and then streamline the process of not only onboarding, but creating accounts, asset management, reporting, whether it's a facility issue, a technology issue. So those are the major on the horizon for September.
And you want to leave now, right? I do want to say that, you brought us to the 21st century. I mean, just the help desk stuff and, I was here when it was like, there was nothing. It was like a panic mode. I remember Brian was the chair and June was
Right.
here and,
Yeah.
it
And
was hard.
one more thing, I apologize, that I would be remiss. Again, back to COVID. Shannon Donovan and Greer Monahan were so instrumental in helping us through, as well as all the teachers, all the work that they did during COVID. But those two individuals especially, they were in here in the parking lot handing out devices. I mean, you remember, Erica, times when we chatted during that very dark time. And then besides that, the other thing that really has been amazing, and I'm assuming you are a part of it again this year, is the senior project. And again, hats off go to Eric on that, in setting up a lot of the devices, and Greer's actually setting up a Google site where the kids get to upload all of their stuff. Judges come in, we
So
provide
nice
the
this year. It was
devices,
amazing.
and all the projects just fly right through. The judging becomes simple, easy to score, and again, Greer was a large part of setting that up.
You brought all the silos together as a district, all the
Right.
schools, and just the transition to Google was massive. We talked about that.
No, and I gotta jump in with you, because it just, as you're talking, and thank you for doing that, because again, with COVID, with everything, and it wasn't that long ago, right? It is, and I'm gonna share something, because I'm just gonna share it, because that's who I am. And it's nobody sitting at this table, but maybe 8 or 9 years ago, Eric, you were probably around, and we had another administrator high up say to us, well, we're never going to one-to-one here. That was the mantra of this district. That was the mantra of this district. And it, like, again, the connectivity issues for our testing, for our and again, this is less than 10 years ago, right? So what you walked into 5 years ago, and Carol did have some foresight, and our committee finally started to get some, just even get everybody to a Google space was
Right.
and it's almost absurd to think like where we are now, it's part of our culture. It's
Right.
Even the town.
even the
Town came up behind us.
the Highland,
supporting
the Highlander came in and was like, oh my
my
God. But we had to beg to get Highlander in here to prove what our problems were. So you walked into a big mess, really. Do you know what and Eric, you can attest, and it has nothing to do with the
Yeah.
people that we had working for us.
Right.
Because it's some of this, it's the resources that were put and where we put and had we not started that, I don't know where we would have been when we got to COVID, because you guys knocked it out of the park with that. And just think of the time, but we had started that structure, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like, I'm like, oh my God, that was only 5 years ago, but it really was only 5 years ago.
Right.
I have one last question for you.
Sure.
And I appreciate you telling us kind of like where things are moving forward, with the phone systems. And so I'm sure, as the director of technology, you've had on your director of technology hat, and that there's fiscal constraints and so we have to work within reason. But if there was not reason and I had a magic wand and I said to you, Tom, what would you want for this district? If cost, and I'm not saying that's the case, people,
Yep.
but what would you say to us?
Increase their pace right off the bat.
Okay. All right.
Step one, seriously, step one, they're grossly underpaid.
Is there anything infrastructure wise
There,
or,
there,
I appreciate that, because
Yeah.
I agree.
there is some aging infrastructure that, that definitely does still need to be replaced.
Yep.
We had a bit of a failure first thing this morning at Clayville on one of the
Our
key servers.
Okay.
We'll be able to put it back together, but it's not the way it really should be.
Sure.
So yeah, there's a few things like that.
I don't know when you're leaving. Right, so.
No, he's back.
You just came
back.
back?
I came back to, amazing.
Will you be able to make sure that the team understands a few things? A, what is the pecking order of the most, like we do at the school, at the building committee? We have priorities. Is there a prioritized list that eventually could come to us with an updated technology plan so we can then again, stop planning and come up with a fiscal plan for it and within our budget? And then the second thing, which is like really important because you know I ran E-rate for the state. Is there anybody else in the district that knows it besides you? Because that 300,000 is big and we can't
Yeah,
stop that.
No, I don't. But we do, I mean, we have a consultant.
Jason does.
Is Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we
I don't
do
know if
have,
anything like E-rate that you need to make sure you hand the baton to that you're currently doing because
right,
E-rate, like school construction aid, was never being optimized.
right.
And so now we've got the funding coming back to us. It's
Yeah.
refunding the technology, you
Right.
know, so
Definitely.
we want to keep that
Um,
going.
Yeah, and like I said, we do have a consultant that we use, and they're instrumental because the other thing, as you know, with any government agency, the rules keep changing, the dates
Oh, I
keep
know, especially
changing,
in
the
E-rate, so
requirements keep changing,
difficult.
you know,
Yeah.
and they're experts in it. They're the ones that go to the conferences in DC and talk to the legislators and find out what the latest and
And they'll-
greatest things
and
are.
people here understand what they have to give them so they can do what they need to do to submit for us.
Again, especially if Jason's done it in the past, you know, with the help of a consultant,
Okay,
it's still a
let's-
considerable amount of work. Yeah,
So
it's still a
let's-
considerable amount of work, but
Oh,
the consultants are key. And, you know, and again, the continued support of both the town and the school committee on, you know, because as you know, we're gonna have to continually refresh
oh, I
every
know.
year. You know, I
It's
mean,
not one and done.
it's not one,
Like
it's
this with technology.
not one and done. And it just also made me think of a thing probably 10, almost 15 years ago. Gentleman who started Atrion Networking, which was a large networking company in Warwick that got bought out by a company called Carousel, which is nationwide. He wrote an article many years ago that called IT the new utility. And he started out the article with, could you imagine walking into work and not having the lights on, not having the heat on,
It's
and
true.
not
Especially
having
education.
electricity? And that's what IT is now. It's just impossible to work.
Instructional technology has brought technology into the classroom and that's how they're delivering the curriculum.
Right.
So.
Right. And it's also the way
Honestly,
students learn.
doesn't run. When that server went down this morning, the look on Patty's face, seriously, I thought, I don't know what's happening, but the world must be coming to an end
Right.
because she looks bad. But honestly, when those machines don't work, stuff can't get into the finance software, you know, stuff kind of grinds to a halt.
No, it's so important. So again, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Great job, Tom.
Thank you
We
very
had
much.
a nice conversation this morning.
We
I
did.
told him I'm a little envious. He's
Yeah.
gonna be cutting grass and doing nice, enjoyable
Traveling.
things.
And some golf.
And this really makes it official. Once you get the Situate clock, like it is
Oh.
official,
Oh,
right? And you're getting the
oh,
clock tonight.
my
right?
clock is ticking.
And the cupcakes, the clock and the cupcakes make it official.
Okay.
So thank you for all that you've done.
Then your clock keep ticking. Yeah,
I feel a lot hotter that birthday.
yeah.
Pass it around.
That's right.
Pass the cupcakes around.
Oh, no, I got plenty to do, just between things on my house and, as I said, I think I'm gonna try to go to work at a golf course and cut grass or be a starter or whatever and play free golf.
That sounds like a lot less stress than worrying
And
about.
I love the game too.
Yeah,
So
life's too short.
You might see Carolyn out there, so.
I play at Crystal Lake, which is like 7 minutes from my house.
Oh,
I played there since it opened. And then I also, I'm not, thank you. And also Thompson, Connecticut. Oh, maybe you play on a particular day? Oh. Oh, I'm not trusting. Bud and I play. Bud. Bud's my best friend. All right, oh, that's good. You guys don't, if you don't mind, I'm
You know, I'm.
gonna take off. Thank you. I'll still be, as I still, Lori, I'll still be in touch if people need me. They'll know where to find me. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to wring my neck. Thank you.
You can try to find me, yeah, Stan.
So moving right along, that was a high note. I'd like to move to the superintendent's report. So I know that you're just catching your breath from playing hostess with the mostest, but I'm good. My report, I apologize for getting to you so late. It was not in the packet on Friday. But
You're on vacation too.
I was on vacation. The committee has the employee updates in your packet. I'd like to congratulate Tom, who's already left, on his retirement and wish him well. As you can see, we've been filling a lot of open positions at the buildings. I'd like to welcome our new faculty members, and I know that the teams at the buildings have made some excellent choices in staffing for our students. I presented Tom with his clock on behalf of the committee. The kindergarten registrations continue to come in. We actually had another K registration at Hope today after I reviewed the numbers. We continue to reach out to those families that have not completed the registration process. Currently, we have a total of 76 students registered and about 8 families that we're aware of that are in Situate but have not registered and or notified us that the students will not be attending Situate. There are 7 families at this point in time that will be attending private programs rather than our elementary schools. These numbers are very fluid until the middle of August. I have spoken to other superintendents and they are also reporting that families are very slow to register their kindergartners this year.
At the last meeting, you were concerned that the numbers would be down.
Yeah,
Are you just worried that is it possible it's just slow?
that's what we're hearing. We are hearing that both from surrounding communities and based on our child outreach screenings and families that we know are there and that are still not responding to us. So we're going to watch those numbers closely. We are planning our administrative retreat again this year. It will be held August 23rd to the 25th. We'll focus on systems alignment, data, curriculum, learning walks, legal updates, interview requirements, and documentation and professional development. That agenda is a shared document that all administrators have access to and can contribute to. Stephanie and I talked about 2 finance topics that need to go on that agenda, so that will be expanding. I will share the completed agenda with the full committee as soon as it is done and finalized. The Teamsters negotiations,
have not begun as of this date. We're awaiting an agreeable date from the Teamsters for our first meeting. And again, I will keep you updated as we get notified from them. The summer program started today. We have 39 elementary students that have committed to attending, and we have 24 students that showed up this morning. The younger students' attendance is always better than our older students. We have invited 82 elementary students to attend the program. Some parents have reported that they've enrolled their children in camp for the summer, and some parents noted that transportation was an issue. Lastly, parents have stated to us that they've hired private tutors and are supporting their own children that way. We are going to track the transportation issue because that did come up across levels. And so we're going to try to factor that in when we make some recommendations to this committee in the future. I'm going there. The middle school has 33 students that will be attending for math and ELA support. We invited 118 in total at the middle school. Parents were contacted by phone, and again, some parents reported transportation as being an issue for attendance. The high school has 18 class enrollments at this time. 2 students are taking 2 classes each. 7 additional students are eligible for enrollment but chose not to enroll. There was no response from the families to our attempts to communicate with them. Do you have questions about that?
I'm just disheartened about the middle school numbers. I mean,
33 is,
did we have the money?
that's more than,
ESSER funding to put the buses and swoop them up, or?
we could have moved money around and provided transportation. If we needed to, sure, we could have done that.
Lori,
It's
how
so
does this
far
compare to
behind.
last year?
The numbers are better than last year.
We had 8 students.
Yeah, I don't think we had
I don't think we had any.
any middle school,
Yeah.
0.
And you have 33.
And we have 33, yeah. So it is better, and you know, we are, Ozzy's gonna do a deep dive, not only around attendance, but the impact and the cost per student, the financial impact for the district. What did we get bang for our buck? You know, did it really impact student achievement? And, you know, when the program's over, Ozzy and I will dig deep into that data and report out fully to the committee. All right?
She said she's gonna give us that in August.
She will. She will.
So I did see the numbers, and would I have loved to see more
Yeah.
at the middle school? Absolutely, everyone. But if I remember, and I don't think I think we had 0 last year. So,
But the gaps
I-
are so
well,
big in the
I
middle
think
school.
that's the
You can't
problem.
Have learning
So
gaps. I don't understand why the
that's-
parents are not
That's
doing.
the piece where the middle school had the most need, like to have 118 kids. So we're talking, we're under 100 kids a class.
Yeah.
You're talking under 3, like over a third, like, and I'm not.
It's a third.
We understand. It's not unique to Situate.
No,
That getting kids and families to participate in summer programming has been very difficult since COVID. I will tell you, before COVID, parents were screaming for schools to run summer programs. Since COVID, they really don't want much to do with it. Things have really changed, and it is not unique to Situate. It is across the state and across the country. So when we get to talk about the Learn 365 grant later on, thinking about some of the things that we know have changed since COVID and ways that we can impact and mitigate some of that, we try to incorporate that in this grant.
I just want to make sure,
I can't hear you, Carolyn.
Patty, I just want to make sure that you're, when we say, let's put it on the August agenda, because sometimes we say it and then it doesn't get picked up, so please make a note. And
Are
when
you sure it's August though? Because the program's still running. She won't have the data for the first meeting in August. That first Tuesday, they're not done yet. They're not done till August 11th.
Well, she's, okay. Then
So
let's
that
put
would
it
be
on,
September.
okay. Right, we can put it on the September agenda.
We just gotta wait for the program to end for her to get the data.
Mhm.
All right. There are many projects being completed this summer that have our facilities director very busy. The radiator covers for Hope will be arriving this month and installed prior to the start of school. I am extremely happy about that. Those radiator covers, those radiators really make me quite nervous. So I'm particularly thrilled those are going in. The high school roof repairs will begin shortly. The high school hallway connector drawings have been approved by RIDE. And this project is expected to go out to bid soon. So sometime in the near future, there won't be trash barrels when it rains, collecting the natural rainwater that comes through there. The North Situate and high school fire alarm systems work is moving forward with pre-bid meetings held on July 7th. The high school outside stairs and sidewalk project has gone out to bid. Additional security camera work will be completed at all buildings this summer. The phone system upgrade that Tom spoke to you about is in process and moving forward with the contract being reviewed and the phone system upgrade is in process now and will be completed this summer. The well project continues to move forward and the contract is being reviewed and updated. Summer is a really busy time for us and I want to thank the administrative team for all their hard work during these summer months. We get a lot done during the summer. So thank you to everyone. Nice work.
And I just want to add that the well
Yeah. Well,
is, today I got an email saying that Northeast Water Solutions has sent our revisions to the, to write to, not the
interlocal trust. Is it
no,
the inter?
no, it's RIB, I forgot,
RIB?
Rhode Island.
Inter bank,
Yeah,
infrastructure bank.
thank you, thank you.
It'll take
The Rhode
all three of
Island
us to get to
Infrastructure
there.
Bank, there's more ABCs.
Yeah.
So that should be turning around, I'm hoping this week, so then hopefully the well will be starting next week, so we'll see, because they're ready to go.
Yeah.
So, Northwest Water Solutions is like the number one engineering. And so they did all the engineering. Well, if they're gonna start digging, they know where it's going, so I don't know whether or not, because it's not with Kyle from Secoshia. They weren't there, but we did have them. The well? Well, our well is going right between the two schools, so that's the well I'm talking about.
All right, Carolyn,
Yeah.
if we can bring that to public comment. 'cause I don't
Yeah.
think the audience.
We
can
can,
hear that.
we can get somebody to get back to you to explain all the locations of that, but it's all mapped out. And that we couldn't get it mapped out because the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank wouldn't have approved it. And so the Rhode Island Department of Health has signed off on it. Everything's like systems all go. So hopefully we'll start seeing. We'll get somebody over there to tell you, I have no what. Whatever, they know the septic system is there, so, but let me let them get back to you on that. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Lori or any comments? Okay, now we'll hear from our Director of Finance, who's already gotten a kudos for implementing Tyler with her team. So, do you want to just give us a quick update on where we are with the
Absolutely.
closeout and the audit?
And I also apologize for getting it in late Friday night. I was sick, but I did my best
I was
to get it
surprised
in
you got
quickly.
in. I told you not to worry about it. Wow.
I want to give a quick audit update first, if that's okay. And
That's
then,
fine.
right now, we are in the testing phase of the audit. The auditors test our controls and our processes and procedures surrounding them. So we've been doing a lot of that. I've been complying with all requests and have provided all supporting documentation by the required deadlines. This week, I'm working daily with the auditor for our next compilation of item, and they're due this Friday. I'm also simultaneously working with RIDE to ensure our UCOA files are consistent with RIDE UCOA requirements. So we're in a good place. And now
Will we be on time this year? Or are we gonna have to ask for an extension?
I have foreseen no reason why we won't be on time.
And it's not gonna be the schools holding up if they
No,
do?
no.
All right, fantastic. That's amazing in itself. Thank you so much.
Mm.
And the number looks really good. So go ahead, right to the numbers now.
So to jump into the budget to actual, and I know we've kind of gone through this 1,000 times, so I'm sorry, but I'm gonna jump on those certain items
Appreciate the
again.
nuggets. that you
Yeah, I
bring
was gonna
forth.
say, just the important nuggets we'll touch on so we can kind of go through quickly. You will see that we had $47,985 more in state aid than we projected. And as we talked about when we were talking about our projections, this can happen due to the quarters and how that changes. Other revenues was less $12,542. And as you'll see, the expenditures were a variance of $12,898. I call that fate. So we ended up in a great place. And we're gonna jump to salaries because there is a bunch on here I kind of want to touch on. The other slides won't be as long. I want to talk about the regular salaries. I know the variance looks large, but we do need to remember that we started breaking out the salary UCOAs this year. So everything was in the 5110s before, and now we're spreading it out through the other UCOAs. So that looks like a huge number was budgeted off, but it really isn't. It's due to the UCOA changes as well as the vacant math specialist, unanticipated retirements. We had 13 at that time. PTOT reimbursements that were all going through that object code and then will be dispersed in the appropriate places moving forward. The contractual PD for certified teachers was just slightly over. And I know we talked about that line being important, budgeting as we did budget appropriately this year, knowing what goes into which object code. And that's why there was a difference there. In the professional development, ADP and Tyler systems in the front office had a lot of work and beginning this year. So you'll see the changes there. In overtime, we had custodial overtime. And I did talk with Jay and we started a large amount of waxing in that particular year. And I know they're doing it again this year, really getting things cleaned up. We also had the ADP and Tyler again systems that needed to be implemented. The only other area was the severance that was rather large. And again, we had those 13 retirements and some contractual payouts upon leave. Mike, will you go to the next slide? Look, next one. For the health and medical premiums, that again, I mean, we can predict, but there's enrollment changes, and especially when we have retirements or we have new employees, some might be switching to a family plan or a single plan. Yes.
Do you want to go through the whole thing?
No,
All right. So, and I know, so I'm looking back, so back to the salaries. So we had, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this properly.
Mhm.
So when we're talking about additional conversation buyback, is buyback, is that what's pertaining to like healthcare?
So, yep, buyback and dental. So if you don't take the health or dental, you get a buyback twice a year.
So I think, and this is not your issue, it was a previously stated issue. We had implemented that as a cost savings measure. I don't think it was vetted out properly before we did it by a previous administrator. And it's actually costing us money.
Yeah, we definitely need to relook at it.
And I was hoping to, on the opposite side of it, because even more than what we budgeted, but then we also, and I get and premiums increase every year, but we're also seeing a plus on that side as well. So if we're seeing like a major plus on this side, I would have hoped that we could have seen some form of reduction on the other. So I don't think it's meeting it. Do you agree that it's not meeting its intended benefit?
Right.
And I know it was negotiated contractually, so it's not something we can just say, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. But I think we need to be mindful moving forward.
Right, because it depends on who's taking and who's not, et cetera. The benefits, I did want to talk about the health and medical premiums and the dental and life, because there was a variance there and there was enrollment changes. I worked with Heather to see what could have caused that much of a variance because those type of items are pretty predictable. Let's see, what else was a big number? Okay, the pensions, and that was the percentage of salary increases, contracts. And in July, they get that percentage increase, so that affects the pensions, and that's why you'll see a variance there. Next slide, Mike, please. The diagnosticians, we did come up with a solution moving forward for those. And that was something that was under budgeted, but we worked with Northwest and the consortium to have IDEAB help us with a reimbursement there. So even though it looks like a large variance, we do have a plan in place moving forward. As we talked about with E-rate, you'll see a variance with the other purchase professional ed services, but there will be a receivable when that E-rate comes in for hotspots, as well as for the computers. There was also in legal services, we did have increased workers' comp cases, regular attorney fees, fees with the Collaborative Northern and Cato Field, as we talked about before. Other services, we do have, a high level of social and emotional items that need to be taken in consideration with this particular variance. We have some students that need particular care from certain individuals that are costing a little more than we projected. We also have a reimbursement from the Northwest district with the mental health grant, and you'll see some savings there as well moving forward. Trying to see if there's anything else. Oh, sorry.
I probably should have noticed before, and
Yeah.
So there's under purchase and professional services, there is a line item in here for bus assistants / monitors, budgeted $8,969 actual, why is that there?
So Jay does that now, but initially in the beginning of the year, he wasn't doing it.
Does what?
It wasn't a bus assistant or a monitor. It was a overseer of the monitors, supervisor. So we had one at the beginning of the year. That's why you'll see like a small charge, but then
Okay.
he took it over.
Okay, I got
So it went away.
All right,
Yeah.
I would, yeah, Jay as well, but no, he.
Yeah, lots of good positive changes. Yeah, yeah.
I think you were saying Jay had it in his
Yeah.
budget, but you're saying Jay actually,
Right.
perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Can we go to property services? Yeah. There's lots of variances here, and we have talked about this at length with the UCOA changes and really understanding where items go and into which line. So next year, they will be budgeted properly, and you won't see the variances, because as you can see, they kind of equal out. In one line, there's a surplus, in one line, there's a deficit, and it's because they weren't going in the appropriate lines at that time. I can go to the next slide, Mike. We were able to put the summer busing in ESER 2, so that's one positive nugget in that line. You'll see in the property and liability insurance. Yeah.
I'm confused. You just said summer busing,
Next year, because this is the closeout for,
next year. But summer, who are we busing in the summer?
so it was not this year, last year.
We did.
Oh,
Okay. I
oh,
just-
sorry, I
we're
wasn't
not-
here, so I don't know.
No, but we're not bus.
Not busing this year.
You're right. You're absolutely.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
I get confused too. So the advertising cost, as you know now, that's something that we really have to consider, and we're advertising for CTE. So you just,
That money should have been somewhere else. We never, just so you do know, those, so we never had $2,500. This committee has committed like.
Yep.
Right, like over it, maybe way back when it was, but it was somewhere else.
it was
in
under
that-
purchase services,
Okay.
yeah. I looked on the workbook. Yeah. Karen. So the other change in here is you'll see in tuition to private sources, we do have that ARP grant. And $20,000 was able to go into that for some of our tuitions. So that was something good. Yes. Into supplies. You'll note that in athletic supplies, a lot of it was booked in the equipment, and that had to be reclassed. Fuel oil, we've talked about that at length, the rates and how much goes into each school. And it's significantly higher than the budgeted rates. Custodial supplies, we can't help that. There's supply increases. That's all over with everything. Textbooks, it's a small nugget. Correct, moving forward.
Accommodations last year as well, but I don't think any
Right.
of us foresaw, right, like.
Right.
mm,
It's a small little non-material nugget, but it's
nugget.
positive.
it's another-
We did get a reimbursement from RIDE for some of those non-public textbooks, $500, but take it, yeah. We can go to dues and fees. Oh, I'm sorry, before we do, the tech-related hardware, that's the other E-rate reimbursement, and that'll be $164,850. That's great. As
that, so it comes out here.
Mhm.
And then does it come back, where does it come back in?
it's gonna go back into that, well, at this point, because it's after 90 days, we didn't get the reimbursement in the fiscal year, so it's gonna be a receivable.
So under, like, where we have other revenues, would that?
Right.
It would come in, would that come in under something? I was asking a question.
I'm already into it.
I'm sorry.
So like you said, that'll show in next year.
So that was my question. So, and it's just for a general understanding. So the E-rates come back, obviously it's a very big and very important. So to come back into the budget, does it, like, would we have E-rates in this year's revenues based on?
So me and the E-rate consultant have talked at length about, yes, I said, when is this coming in? Is it going to be within the fiscal year? I talked to her more than my husband probably this year, and she kept saying, I can't promise you anything. I don't know. So I was very nervous about making the expenditure. And I talked at length with Carol and we worked together and, you know, I was new to the E-rate, but it is coming in, I believe, in the next few weeks. So that's excellent. And then it will be applied to FY24, because after 90 days, it can't go back into 23.
So is it possible, and I don't know this question, but is it possible, maybe you know, so if you stop talking, I'll finish my question. So theoretically, it's possible that this are under other revenues for this actual budget, we could have had actual revenues from 2022 that we got after that date that have come in here. Like this would follow into.
If it didn't come in that fiscal year, but it did go into that. So the time frame is just different each year. It came
Okay.
in last year within the
Okay.
fiscal year, and this year it came in outside. That's why I was,
But you don't have that reflected here.
no, nope, because I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah, no, yeah,
I don't count my chickens before they hatch.
but that's. Do you have an estimate of what you'll be receiving?
Yes, it's $164,850.
Go ahead.
Is it coming in as a receivable or an expenditure credit? Because I thought they come in as an expenditure credit,
Well, after 90 days, it can't be. It's in FY24.
but you can apply it to the 24. It'll be a negative in the budget, in the chart, but are we going to display it as a negative in the expense side, or are we going to show it as a revenue coming in? The auditor, did you talk to the auditor about that?
We're actually going through all this week, but from my understanding, from speaking with him, it would not be applied to this year at all.
No,
because
no,
that's not
I don't
coming yet.
care. No, what I'm saying is that when it comes in, you would just apply it to the 24 line, which would show a massive,
So no, then it would be a revenue. I see what you're saying. 'Cause
Yes,
It would go,
if
you're
it-
saying if it went into the line item. So yeah, it wouldn't work like that.
so it's not gonna be applied to the expenditure.
It's not gonna go into
I've
that
never
line.
seen a revenue, I've never, because E-rate is an offset of what you've spent. I've never seen it not show as an expenditure credit.
The way that we talked about it was if it's in the same exact
Back.
year, it'll be in a credit to the expenditure, but because it's after the 90 days, it's not, it's gonna be a receivable to this year, which would then,
Be a revenue.
right?
So I think and I don't know a lot about these nuggets and E-rates as much as you two do. But I'm getting it now. So normally, I think under normal circumstances.
would
you're getting
be
it in
a
the
credit
same
to-
fiscal.
yeah.
So instead of seeing it, instead of our whatever being, say we're getting $50,000, instead of it being an expense of 100,000, we're gonna see it as of an expense as 50,000.
Right, if it's in the same year.
Applied in the same thing. So next year. But it's gonna be inside our revenues, but it's not gonna be on that line item, because then that would throw our whole budget off.
Right.
As far as we just have to be cognizant that if it's an extra $100,000, that's not money we're banking on for the following year, right?
No.
Because unless that's how it carries over every year, I don't know how your E-rate stuff go. Thank you, Stephanie. We're all learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other thing on that line, we did move $23,511 to the arts grant for some of the Ockers in the auditorium. Just another good nugget. We had a lot of well-used money. Dues and fees, Mike? We were pretty good here. I don't have any comments in that section. And then if we want to go to our final budget to actual.
Variance in these, like, I'm just back at like, we saved money, I'm not complaining, but is that just different appropriations that are going different places? Like professional organization fees, we budgeted 60,000 and only spent 18,000.
Right.
Yeah, not complaining, but
It's just,
it
Yeah.
just moved.
Yeah,
Okay.
FY24 is the first budget that aligns. Yeah. Accurately.
and I'm correcting all the strings ahead of time, so I'm getting the feedback now so we can,
It's the base for this year is gonna be our base for all years coming afterwards to track expenditures down to the right column.
Apples to apples.
Yeah.
Or not it.
that's right.
Last thing, all of the offsets that made this come out to almost zero, because this is a good number, right? Without those offsets next year, we need to be careful. We just need to be careful, because ESSA two and all these offsets, they're going away.
I'm watching everything very closely.
So I don't want to end up with a funding cliff.
Mhm.
No. No, but that's actually, I think something we've all been cognizant of since, again, ESSER funds are wonderful, they're great, they're this, but. One time. Right, one and done, or 1.5 and done,
Right.
yeah. But we're
Yeah.
taking, they're not.
But they're moving operating expenses into ESSA, creating surpluses, and which is fine. We needed it, but the only other thing I wanted to mention to Patty, can you put ESSA two update on August agenda?
That's all I had.
All right, that's good.
Last question.
Yeah.
I think with, just clarifying, so when we refer to the nuggets are always in the positive, correct?
Sometimes they're negative, but I do
We
it
have
with,
negative
I
nuggets
do
or
it
we
with a
have-
smile. We had all positive ones though. That I highlighted.
Negative
I'd
nugget.
like another term. Nuggets are positive.
Okay, are we doing public comment before new business? Don't we normally do public comment before new business?
I'd like to make a motion to take out of
Yeah.
order the agenda. I think it was just listed wrong. To move public comment before new business.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so public comment. Does anyone have a public comment? Oh, I figured you might want to say something. Come on up. State your name and address.
Chuck Collins, Vice President of the Situate Town Council. I'm here about the superintendent. A couple weeks ago, I was tasked with Learn 365. And I was told to get a meeting set up with the council and the school committee. So when I was going to be in the process of that, I was told on a Thursday that I had to the following Friday, which was like less than a week, to get this all done. So I called the Director of Municipal Affairs at the governor's office about it, and they gave me a nonprofit person to talk to. And upon talking to that person, they said I should talk to the superintendent to get the superintendent to help me. And I've been on the council a long time, as everybody knows, and I've always, somebody really steps to the plate and does something good for the town or the people in the town, I like to recognize it. So when I called the superintendent up, I think it was a Friday morning, she was like, "What are you talking about?" I know, she knew a little bit about it. So I asked her to talk to the person in nonprofit and to, I know it's warm in here to make it short, sweet, but Monday.
We like good news, so keep going.
Yeah, well, Monday, we got going on it and I sent the thing to the governor's office and got it back. The contract, because it had to, the money has to flow if it comes from the state, has to flow through the council. Like that, right? And it's given to you, it's $50,000. There was two different grants, 400,000 and 50,000, and I was told to put in for the 50,000. And it was imperative that I put in right away on Monday for the contract from the council for the town, because it puts you in the pipeline down the road too, if anything else comes. So it is a good sized grant, $50,000. And I gotta tell you, the main reason I'm here is for kudos to the superintendent. Is she stepped to the plate, she wrote a book. She talked to various departments, recreation, libraries, to set the program in motion and everything like that, and forwarded it all to the state. And we're gonna know, hopefully, the first week of August, whether we get the grant or not. So I wanted to, come here tonight and recognize the superintendent. I think she did an excellent job, tremendously helped me out.
Chuck, no,
Yeah.
we hear very little of people coming forward and saying,
Well,
thank
hey.
you.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that.
We
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Well,
And to kind of, just to
And
piggyback.
very short notice, but kudos to both of yous, actually.
Yes, and thank you for your part. So I just want to give a little shout to Lori as well. So like Chucky said, he's been in politics for a long time, and as kind as he is standing up here tonight to give you accolades, he's been in politics long enough and involved in the town long enough where if things don't go the way they're supposed to go,
you'll
he's
hear.
not up here giving you accolades. So again, I just wanted her to know,
Yep.
if you're not happy-go-lucky at Chuck all the time. Not that you're not a nice guy,
Oh, thank you.
but so for you to come here to say the great is, you'd certainly be here. We'd hear if it wasn't. So
Yep.
thank you for taking the time to be the other side of things.
And I see it's on your agenda tonight, so I hope you go forward with it. Because she did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Collins. I
Thank you for your
appreciate
time.
those very kind
Yeah.
words.
It's so nice of you. Thank you,
Okay.
Chuck.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, the whole council's.
And a copy of the grant I left on your seat while you were out.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? Anyone at home would like to make a public comment? Just raise your hand. Going once, twice. Would you like to make a public comment, Eric? Are you all set?
Oh, come back.
Up,
They're gonna do the award.
Wait here, that's so we can.
Okay, they're gonna do the award, but if and when it's accepted, they're gonna want to get some members of the council, the school committee, the superintendent. That they're gonna have the governor come out here
oh,
and have a
fantastic.
photo op and everything like that. So I just wanted to make you aware of it. I forgot that.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, Chuck, thanks, thank you so much.
Chuck, can I ask one more thing before you sit down? This is probably inappropriate, but I'm going for it. I did very kindly hear Mr. Collins, as you referred him to, has been involved in Situate for a very long time, and many of us go way back. So would it be okay if the superintendent calls you Chuck or Chucky or as opposed to Mr.
Well,
Collins?
I've always told everybody, Mr. Collins, Charlie, or Charles is my father. God rest his soul. I'm Chuck.
Okay.
Okay?
Go as far as Chucky. That was because we worked with my husband for
Chucky's
100.
my son.
That's true. Gotcha.
God rest his soul, Mr. Collins, because he was such a nice man. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. This is coming to a close. Discussion, action, vote on a new accountant position. This is something that I've advocated for a very long time. The reason why it's coming to the committee is because in the budget, we had a payroll clerk. So this is our opportunity while we have a vacancy to finally put in that accountant, which is really a second. So the committee and the school district will have a good bench and a team behind it. So we never have to deal with the fiscal turmoil that we had over the last 2 years. So I highly recommend that this go forward. I think, the budget would support it. It's a little bit more, but we're looking for an entry level accountant position. So
I know before this position, what this most recent hire was brought on, if I remember correctly, there were cost savings somewhere that we were looking for the accountant. Do you remember what those were? Does that ring a bell for
Yeah,
anybody? Yeah.
Well, we asked the council to put it in the budget and they did. It was in the budget before. But because we didn't hire the accountant, we hired the payroll clerk.
Mhm.
So the 24 budget went in with the payroll clerk. So let's get the accountant in now and we'll try to we'll find savings to support it.
What type of, just rough, and I'd love to hear from you, Stephanie and Lori. What type of increase in, obviously it's different. So 2 questions. What are we looking at for a change in overall cost? And do we need an accountant for as many hours as we needed a payroll clerk? Or because
they're gonna do the payroll too.
okay, so yeah, I'll leave it at that, like just to kind of.
So they'd also do the payroll and then there's many tasks that that I would love to have someone that I could delegate that work to.
That
Train
train
behind.
so and without there's no people involved here. It's just positions, right? That's
Right,
what I want to be
right,
very clear about, and I
right,
know you are.
right.
So as the structure is now with a payroll clerk, you are unable to really delegate.
Correct.
Higher level.
Okay, yeah, no, that's
So
great.
typically you would have in a district, you would have like a finance administrator that takes care of the budgeting. And then you'd have a controller,
And an accountant.
So yes, but you have primarily functions as controller.
You
but the controller
So
does
last question and I think you can help me understand this better. So
I know you were worried about top heavy in the central office, but we're not adding another.
No, and I'm just gonna ask, I'm gonna ask a question for like, as a taxpayer, as just trying to get the information out there, so, who's her?
Just bring it.
What's still my. So this, I think I got it in my head, so obviously there's higher level function, lower level on your end of the things, does that make sense? But higher than what, like, there's stuff that could come off your plate that doesn't necessarily require your expertise. Because then my thought is, okay, I'm just like processing. Do we have a clerk that just does specifically payroll and then a part-time person that is able to do the accountant piece, or does it just make more sense to roll it all in one? Do you,
I understand your question. I think right now, because the payroll piece is really critical, that we get that filled. We are confident that an accountant would in order to do the payroll job and additional tasks that could support Stephanie and the work that she does, rather than having two separate bodies, have one that has the skill and background knowledge that they can be multitasking and multifaceted, if that makes any sense.
Doesn't, I think just very bluntly, what I think the word you said is like an entry level accounting. We're not looking for a CPA with an MBA from, yeah, no, okay.
Make two more comments.
Just because,
Oh, I'm
clarify, no, you can give it. Do we have an idea of what the pay range, the difference in where we are now to what we'd be going? Roughly, I know you can't.
Because it's entry level.
Yeah.
But I do want to make a couple of points, because as you know, when we were going through the transition between moving to two new FMIS systems and a new director of finance, it was a lot of boots on the ground, for me, and I had an opportunity to see where the needs were. And this person, and I still think there's a weakness there, because there's not really someone that's, that the federal grants are really important, but she doesn't have time. Like, we would be able to track, but that's the first thing, because we can't forget about our federal money. But the second thing is, and it is the most important, you have somebody that's in that office that can step in if Stephanie goes away for 2 weeks, or, goes away on vacation. She'll be able, it's back training. It's, what I mean?
Takes vacation about as much as that one.
Well, maybe she can take a vacation now, but it's really a safety net, and that's what I wanted to mention. I know. I don't know if the accountant is going to stop that, but hopefully it will give some peace of mind to all of us. Do I have a motion to approve the accountant position?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, and then the next item is the discussion action vote on the Learn 365 Rhode Island grant. And I'm excited to hear about what services are going to be coming to the town for our students.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Collins, Chuck, for the really kind words this evening. It's not often that the superintendent gets a compliment, particularly in public at the school committee meeting. So thank you for that. I'm going to note this date and time myself. You have a copy of the grant in your packet, and I'm not going to read it to you. I do want to acknowledge that Ozzy helped me put this together in a very short amount of time. She was at home on vacation, and I was here in Situate running around meeting with Cora, the librarian out at Hope, who I want to say publicly, thank you, Cora. She's wonderful. She's a wealth of knowledge. And although we're going to make some connections and work together through this grant, we have had conversations about a longstanding relationship and some great things that we will be able to do for our kids here in Situate, along with her help. And we're talking about working collaboratively around some outdoor learning space that she is excited about. And I know our kids would love. So thank you, Cora. I'm really pleased that we got to meet and make a connection. Dave Pannone and I have had many conversations, but we spent quite a bit of time talking to each other about how the rec department could support some of this work. Erica connected me with the one strategy, and this particular outside group is also doing some work with Smithfield School Department. So thanks for that connection, Erica. There are some provisions. I spent a lot of time talking to the connection that Chuck gave me at the governor's office. That gentleman was so helpful. I called him at 7:30 one morning. I just lost my head. I didn't realize it was quite that early. But he picked up the phone and we had a nice conversation. He gave me the information I needed. He was very, very supportive. So I feel really good about the grant that we have submitted. I talked to him about what we were planning to do. He seemed very excited about some of the initiatives. But we tried to focus particularly around attendance. So we looked for programs that would get kids into school early and or keep kids afterwards, because once kids are there, they'll stay, like they're not gonna go home, right? So we know we've got to work on some attendance issues, and we tried to make those connections. Cora at the library will be instrumental in providing some of that programming, as will Dave Pannone in the rec department. They have agreed to come in before school and do some, Ozzy's particularly excited about this cardio drumming that she says is just fabulous. There'll be some yoga and some mindfulness, some martial arts, both before and after school. We'll also be working to open up the guidance department a couple of evenings so that families can come in and get some support around filling out FAFSA forms, which is one of the governor's initiatives in this work. So the complete grant is there, but in total, if you multiply the number of kids that this grant potentially will touch by the number of hours, we will be adding 116,000 hours to provide services for students here at Situate that we would not have without this $50,000.
So,
So thank you. Thank you, Chuck.
yeah, I want to say I read through that, and I'll say, and I think many people here will agree, sometimes when things at the state level don't always make sense, right? This makes sense. So it's $50,000 is a lot of money, don't get me wrong. And I'm very thankful I'd be very appreciative if we got that grant.
Yeah.
But just the work that you guys have done thus far, we've just created partnerships within our community that may have existed, may not. We've strengthened them.
Yes.
And we all serve the same mission. And we're all in the same town. We're on the same team, right? So
Yeah.
again, I'm very confident that you guys have done everything that needs to be done to secure this grant, but I got a little goosebumpy listening to you guys talk about it, thinking just how it just makes us one community.
I'm gonna be really honest. When Chuck came to me on that Friday, I thought, oh my word, like, how am I gonna pull this off? And so I do what I do. I reach out to the people that I know, and I called Ozzy and I said, look, I'm here in Situate. I'm gonna run around. I'm gonna make the phone calls, but I need somebody boots on the ground trying to put this stuff into the machine. We spent about 2.5 hours together on the phone, digging through data. She had a screen up at her house. I had a screen up in my office. So if it wasn't for her help, I don't know that we would have gotten there. But I did say to her at the end of the week when we hit submit, I said, just think if we actually had time, the work, what we might be able to pull off, because we put this together in a week.
Could you please, on behalf of the school committee, and I hope you allow me to speak for the rest of you when I say this, that when we receive this grant, which I'm quite confident we will, that I'd like to ask Ozzy and Chuck to come back and do some cardio drumming with us.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
Forgot about that. So she already had a lot on her plate before she took this on.
No, you don't have to vote. Yes, this is only for your information because as Chuck said, if we get approved, the governor's going to want the committee to be with the town council for a photo op. This is a big deal for the governor and the governor's
And I think
office.
this should be a big deal for those involved. And it's great, yeah, the school committee, blah. But I'd love to see a picture with you, with Ozzy, with Chuck, because like, this is what our taxpayers need to see. That on the last day of school and with 2 days' notice on your part, you guys are running around doing everything that you can do to get any monies that we can get. So I'd love for us to, not just the governor's office, but us to push out as well on this.
Do I hear Mary Morse coming through?
I know, yes. Free publicity. But
Okay.
well deserved.
Are there any announcements by the committee? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?